Welcome to the Apartment Investor Pro podcast, where we talk about how to be a more successful multifamily investor with a focus on using technology to boost your business. And now your host, Todd Heitner.
Welcome to the Apartment Investor Pro podcast. In this episode, I'll be interviewing Michael Blanc, who is an apartment investor, author, speaker, and an authority on apartment investing. Our topic today is automating your multifamily syndication business. I brought Michael on because I know he's passionate about this. We've talked a number of times and we both get excited about automation. I firmly believe in automating as much as I can. It frees up my time and makes sure things get done consistently. So here are just a few of the topics we'll cover. How automation can save you time in your investment business, how to keep important leads from falling through the cracks, and pros and cons of different CRMs, that's customer relationship management services. These services have a big part to play in your automation, so choosing a good one from the start is important. So let's dive right into the interview. Today I have Michael Blanc with me. Michael, of course, is an entrepreneur. He's passionate about helping people become financially free through real estate investing. He's the author of Amazon bestseller, Financial Freedom with Real Estate Investing. He's the host of the Apartment Buildings Investing podcast. He's helped investors purchase over 6,332 units, valued at $276 million through his training programs. And as the CEO of Nighthawk Equity, he controls over $64 million in performing multifamily assets all over the United States and has raised over $10 million. But Michael, thanks for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Todd.
Yeah. So today, I know there's a lot of topics you could talk about, but I wanted to kind of focus on automation, kind of the more technical aspect of the syndication business, kind of what automations you have in place that, that have been beneficial to you and kind of how you, got things set up. Maybe just briefly, we could just touch on like the benefits of using automation. What have you found with automating things in your business?
Well, yeah, automation is huge. I mean, it's massive. And the technology available today makes it very easy to automate many, many different things. I mean, you can automate emails. You can modify the behavior of emails. When someone does something here, it should change the behavior here. I can integrate different systems entirely via Zapier, right? I can interview when someone schedules a call via Calendly, I can trigger an automation or stop one or do this. And the more I can do that, the easier it is for us. And so once you set up all these automations, really what happens is they just kind of take their course and people, move through your process. And as a syndicator, for example, it's very important that you automate these processes and trying to attract new people, new investors. But you can't just because someone downloads something from a website, you can't just, show them a deal. You have to actually have a conversation with them. But you also have to nurture them. You have to welcome them. You have to welcome them, indoctrinate them, educate them. Then you have to get them to do a phone call. And all these things can be automated. If you did it manually, it would be very time intensive. But the automations are such that where basically once you set it all up, someone somewhere downloads one of your lead magnets or free downloads or special reports. You wake up in the morning, you have 3 calls automatically. So we love automation.
Yeah, I do too. And I think one of the, besides the fact that it saves time, it also keeps things from falling through the cracks. Like things get done consistently. If you had to rely on yourself to do all of those manual steps, then it's just not going to get done consistently every time. And so I understand you're using ActiveCampaign as your CRM. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay, cool. So what kind of automation are you using then? How have you set this up? Like what happens like when somebody signs up for something, or how, can you kind of go through that process of what you have in place?
Well, let's limit our automations to just the investing world, because we have dozens of automations that do a variety of different things, right, including making my coffee in the morning. But let's skip those for now. Yeah. Let's talk about just the capital raising part of the automation. So there's really 4 automations that are really important. One is the lead capture automation. In other words, when someone downloads your special report, or what we call a lead magnet, something of high value that's free, in return to give you your email, that process and what happens after that is very important. And what should happen is there should be a series of automated emails that welcome the new subscriber and tells them about you and your company and educates them a little bit about investing. That's a very important automation that needs to happen. The second one then is that you want, as I said earlier, you want to get them to schedule a call with you, because you need to build a pre-existing substantive relationship with them. Among other things, this means sending them emails, but also having a phone call with them, getting to know them a little better, And that whole automation, that sequence can also be automated. Now, of course, when someone schedules a call with you, you want to stop all those automations, and you don't want to keep chasing someone to schedule a phone call when they've scheduled a phone call. And that's where the integration with Calendly comes in, because we use Calendly for scheduling all that. So that's the second one. The other one is once someone actually has scheduled a call with you, then you have a live deal at that point. You have a live webinar, and then the call to action is to submit the soft commit. Soft commit. What are you interested in investing? Great. Let me know. Fill out the short form. Let me know if it's cash, IRA, what the amount is. And that is also an automation, getting those people then into whatever the closing process. If you're using an investor portal, getting them to that. If you're using a spreadsheet, phone call, doesn't matter. The point is, there's a whole series of automations getting them to closing. And then there's I suppose the other fourth automation, which is all your processes related to getting content out, serving your audience with blog posts, email, YouTube videos, the automations behind that gets the processes out. So there's a lot of automations that are very relevant to a syndicator who really wants to scale the business.
Okay, that's cool. So it sounds like you're using the deals feature in ActiveCampaign then. So you like when someone books a call, is that when they get put in there, or? Okay,
yes, the CRM part of ActiveCampaign, people say this is my CRM system. When I started using it like 4 years ago, in my mind it was like a MailChimp on on steroids. So I wasn't thinking it was a CRM, but you're right. One of the things I love about ActiveCampaign is it's very affordable. And it can do the things that MailChimp can, of course, but it can do a lot more things, such as these automations we're talking about. But then it has all these various add-on components. Now, you got to pay for those add-on components, but they're there. You just turn them on, put a little more money in the machine, and out comes this fantastic feature. So they do have the CRM system. And a CRM system is used especially when you're dealing with phone calls, for example. So if there's a process of people scheduling a call, having the call or not having the call, and there's a follow-on procedure, ActiveCampaign allows you to create different steps in a process. And you can move someone along manually by dragging and dropping. Oh, this guy showed up for a call. This guy didn't show up for a call. This guy's in, this guy's out. But you can also do that with automations, right? So when they do certain things behind that, they fill out a form, they do that, they sign up for that, it can move it along. And so automation can also be used in the sense where you're moving someone along a process. Really, anybody. Could be any process. I mean, it could be a sales process. It could be an onboarding process. It could be a closing process. It could be anything. But it really helps create sanity. Anytime you have more than, say, 10, 20 people, it allows you to really organize that quite a bit.
That's right. ActiveCampaign does do a lot. It does do those basic like email marketing type things that like MailChimp and others can do, but a lot more too. Have you used any other CRM services in the past or email?
All of them.
Yeah. So what made you choose ActiveCampaign, and why did you go that route?
So years ago, it was in 2016. I was at a traffic and conversion conference, and I was hell bent on upgrading. I had used. I started, of course, with Constant Contact, and I upgraded to Aweber because the big boys were using Aweber, and I was just on support calls with those guys for hours, trying to do stuff that I thought Aweber should be able to do at the time, and it couldn't. It just wasn't meant to be that way. So I went to this conference, hell bent on moving to Infusionsoft because I've had enough, right? I want to go to Infusion. And I was talking to people and they're like, no, I'm getting off of Infusionsoft. I'm like, what? I'm going this ActiveCampaign. And I had never heard of I was like, oh my gosh, it's a fly-by-night thing. And so I have used literally every other one. And I used to say, well, if you want to get started, just use like MailChimp because it's free up to, 2,000 users. But ActiveCampaign, I think, is as low as like $9 a month for up to 500 users. And that's not a lot of money because I have migrated now 1, 2, 3 times, right? I think one from MailChimp or Constant Contact to Aweber, from Aweber to ActiveCampaign. And every time you do it, it's painful. It really is painful. And you want to try to minimize the pain as much as you can. And so I just recommend people right now, even if they're starting off, they don't have a single email, just do ActiveCampaign, honestly. And it's a non-negotiable for me, honestly.
Yeah.
Now there's other good solutions that I don't have any experience with. ConvertKit, for example. I know, one of my mentors, Pat Flynn, loves ConvertKit, and I have not played with it. I have looked at it, and it does look like it has a lot of similar features to ActiveCampaign. You may know more about it than I do, but I have not played with it myself.
I'm using, for 2 different things. I'm using ConvertKit for one thing, and I'm using ActiveCampaign for other things. It is a lot more powerful, I think, than something like MailChimp and some of the other ones out there. But so far, I'm really liking ActiveCampaign though too. it does have, I really like the automations feature. Like it's not just about sending out emails, but like you can automate a lot of different things. So like when this happens, this other thing happens. Um, and I really like how it's tag based, which a lot of other, like I know MailChimp has introduced tags, but up until recently they didn't. So I assume, do you use tags pretty heavily too in your business? Yeah.
Now, the issue with tags, as powerful they are, we're at the point now we're trying to clean up our active campaign. So
Yeah.
naming conventions, how you use tags, when you use tags, because you could have hundreds of tags in your system, pretty how to document them. But tags are very powerful because the existence or the lack of a tag allows you to do conditional processing on someone and trigger certain things, stop certain things. Very cool.
Right. Yeah. I like that because the traditional thing was using lists for everything, but then you've got all these different lists. And then if you want to send out something to multiple lists, it's kind of a pain. That's something I ran into before, but I like with Active Campaign, that's kind of what they recommend is, having as few lists as possible and using things like tags and groups and other ways to segment people other than just a bunch of lists. So,
yeah.
And so you mentioned like using Zapier and other things like that, Calendly. So could you tell us about some of those automations, like what other things you have, like how you're connecting that to maybe other services and like how that helps?
On the, for example, there are multiple technologies just for the syndication world. Talk about webinars. So there's something we call Webinar Jam that we use for webinars, and that needs to be integrated with Active Campaign because when someone registers in a webinar, you want to know about an Active Campaign, so you stop the automation that chases someone to schedule for the webinar, for example. So we talked about Calendly when someone schedules a call, that and affects the automations in Active Campaign. But we also have other pieces of technology, web technology. For example, we still use a little bit of ClickFunnels here and there. ClickFunnels is a technology that you use web pages with. We also have some lead pages that we use. And some of these are just simply a result of me experimenting and using different technologies, or you bring on a consultant and they prefer that. So before you know it, you have all these freaking technologies floating around. And the thing that oftentimes binds a lot of these together is Zapier. Zapier is, or Zaps for short, allow different disparate, otherwise non-connected technologies to be connected with another. Now, sometimes there's a direct integration between, for example, Webinar Jam and Active Campaign, okay, or lead pages and Active Campaign. But sometimes there is not. For example, Calendly is a perfect example. Calendly is kind of not natively integrated with Active Campaign or ClickFunnels, but they almost all applications are integrated with Zapier. And what Zapier does is it listens to Calendly, and when something happens, it goes, oh, there's something that happened, and it triggers what's called a zap. And then once that happens, you can then route that zap to a variety of other things, such as, for example, Active Campaign, or really anything. There's a lot of zaps that are triggered or that you can send to. So I can have a Calendly zap that's triggered, and then send it to Active Campaign, or send an email, or do X, Y, and Z. And what I'm looking for with Zapier is that they have the potential, if they're smart, to create something similar that Active Campaign has done. The visual conditional processing, because right now a zap is actually just pretty linear. This happens and that happens. It's an if-then statement. There's very little conditional processing, and I could design stuff in Zapier all day if I wanted to. It's so freaking cool.
Yeah.
And of course you don't want to, because it gets very, very complicated. But Zapier is very, very useful for connecting systems that do useful things, but otherwise aren't talking to each other.
Yeah, that's true. And I found too that, even if there is some kind of native integration, like, because Active Campaign does have an integration now for Calendly, but it's limited, so like it doesn't work very well if you have like a team calendar, if you have like multiple people in the it works for like one person's calendar right now. And so if you want to have it work with a team, team calendar, then you have to use something like Zapier to connect the two. And then it also gives you a little bit more flexibility, as far as like, the tags that get added in Active Campaign or something like that. It could be based on the type of call or something like that. So it does give you a lot more flexibility. So it's a pretty cool tool for connecting things that, like you said, aren't necessarily meant to be connected directly. So then I think that was about it. Do you have anything else to add about automations or anything like that or any recommendations maybe that, I know you said you of course recommend people starting with Active Campaign from the beginning. Some of this can be kind of overwhelming for people setting up all these different automations. What would you say are like the basic things that, somebody should focus on maybe when they're getting started setting this up. Now let's pause briefly to thank our sponsor. And when we come back, Michael will give us his recommendation about the best place to start if you don't have any of this set up yet and you want to get started. Cashflow Portal helps you accelerate capital raising and connect with investors. Use their software for free until you close your first deal. No credit card required, no strings attached, just sign up and start raising capital. Go to cashflowportal.com and tell them you're coming from Apartment Investor Pro to get an additional 3 months free. With Cashflow Portal, you get equity raising, distribution calculator, co-sponsor invitation, and a lot more. Remember, go to cashflowportal.com and mention you've heard about them from Apartment Investor Pro and get 3 months free. I think that was about it. Do you have anything else to add about automations or anything like that or any recommendations maybe that I know you said you of course recommend people starting with ActiveCampaign from the beginning. Some of this can be kind of overwhelming for people setting up all these different automations. What would you say are like the basic things that somebody should focus on maybe when they're getting started setting this up?
First of all, I would just get started with ActiveCampaign. I get questions, well, which one should I use? Just use ActiveCampaign. Pay the $9 and just use it. That's number one. Number two is most people, especially in the syndication business, consider themselves non-techies. I would say probably the exact antithesis of a techie, to the point where I think that people are not open to the idea of actually trying to understand technology. While that maybe used to be the case, technology used to involve scripting and coding. That is no longer the case. Everything now is very much graphical, and anyone with half a brain, and people have more than half a brain. What they don't have is they have a closed brain. And that's what irritates me when I say, why don't you go in ActiveCampaign and just create this automation and connect this app? And they're like, I can't do that. So you haven't even looked at it yet. You haven't even tried. You haven't even considered the pot. Let me show you. And I open up ActiveCampaign and I start an automation that sends an email and sends a text. I don't care. Something simple. And they're like, oh, that wasn't so bad. I said, that's what I've been telling you. So my main message is these technologies are incredibly easy to use. They're very graphical. There's hardly any coding. I mean, really any coding. And the tutorials they have are stunningly awesome to follow. And all you got to do is have an open mind and then spend just a little bit of time learning, okay? And the other thing is there's an aversion to learning, which is related to having a closed mind. And that's probably my biggest lesson. Is just be curious and be open to technology, because it's not going to kill you. It won't bite. And third is try to outsource as much as you can. Okay, you should outsource, and you can get incredibly affordable technologists to do it. But you have to still know. You have to know enough to call BS on the tech guy. Okay.
Yeah.
And so you don't have to get it necessarily in the weeds, but you have to know what you're talking about. You have to know what an automation is, what it does. You should know what a Zap does and is, and you should be able to manage these tech people. And so because of that, just at night, just watching a 20-minute tutorial on how to set up a Zap, like that's amazing. Just watching that thing, you're like, oh, that's pretty cool. And just having a curiosity and openness to learning, I think is a key factor here.
Yeah, I agree. It reminds me because my wife will say, somebody will say that they can't cook, and she says anybody that can read can cook, because there's recipes. All you have to do is follow the instructions. And it's kind of the same thing with setting this stuff up. There's tutorials out there. There's ActiveCampaign even has these, I think they call them recipes. You just kind of import this into your account, and it just kind of has like a little wizard walks you through. But yeah, being involved in that process is important. Even if you don't do every little aspect of connecting things, just knowing how it works so that if something's not right, like you said. So yeah, definitely powerful stuff. And it does make sense, I think, too, to get set up with a system that you're going to stick with long term, because I've gone through that process too of migrating from one to another, and that is a pain. You always lose stuff. Things are in the middle of sending to people, and you just can't move all that stuff over very well. So you move the people, but all the other stuff is a pain. So yeah, good advice. So, well, thanks so much for coming on today. Can you tell us, what's the best way for people to connect with you then?
Oh yeah, thank you. My website is the Michael Blank. It's Blank, because there's only one Michael Blank, of course. And this has been a lot of fun for me, Todd, because I love jamming technology. I actually have a computer science background, and I haven't used it in a long, long time. And so this kind of stuff really lights me up, as you can tell. We're actually starting to teach this to syndicators on how to build these automations. And we're doing this in a workshop style so that people actually have all these automations built. And we call it the Platform Builder Workshop. is what we have. So you can,
Awesome.
so I'm teaching on that. If people want to find out more about that, it's at themichaelblank.com/platform. And that's just a recorded training that I did on the elements of a platform and how to build in the right sequence. And I even have a little screenshot of ActiveCampaign in there, Todd, just to make my point that it's not so scary at all.
Nice. That's great. Awesome. Well, thanks so much. I appreciate you coming on, and we'll talk to you soon then. All right, thanks. Setting up simple automations to move people through your processes can save you time and help you close more leads. The good news is you can do it even if you're not tech savvy. A couple of the tools multifamily syndicators often use are ActiveCampaign and Calendly. Now, ActiveCampaign is an email marketing tool that also has CRM functionality, meaning you can store contacts like potential investors and make notes on them, keep track of when you need to follow up. And Calendly is a scheduling tool where people can schedule an appointment with you. We've put together a free checklist called Checklist for Connecting ActiveCampaign with Calendly to help you connect these two tools. This way you can improve the chances of people showing up for calls and also make sure you know when prospects have and haven't booked a call with you. Plus, even if you aren't using these exact tools, the instructions we provide can be used to connect a lot of other tools. So make sure you get a copy. Download it at apartmentinvestorpro.com/automation and get started right away. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Apartment Investor Pro podcast. Be sure to subscribe to get the latest episodes. Also, visit our website at apartmentinvestorpro.com and connect with us.